The night wraps around you like a velvet cloak, heavy with secrets and the metallic tang of danger. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wails, cutting through the silence, only to fade again into the restless pulse of the city. Streetlights flicker, throwing weak halos onto cracked pavement, and the air hums with the kind of tension that promises someone, somewhere, will not live to see the dawn. And here, at the center of it all, stand two lovers, bound together, not by gentle vows, but by blood, hunger, and an intimacy sharpened at the edge of a knife. Welcome to Lights Out, a world where love does not heal but burns, where passion carries the scent of gunpowder, and where devotion is measured not in roses, but in bodies left behind. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Novel Whisper Official, and comment below the title of the novel you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. The first time you see them, they're almost beautiful in their violence. The couple moves through the night as if choreographed, their bodies close, eyes locked on each other, even while their hands are red. They laugh quietly, a sound almost out of place, sweet in its intimacy, while someone else bleeds out at their feet. He wipes his knife on his jeans. She flicks ash from her cigarette, and together they step into the shadows, as if this is just another night in a life of endless nights. To the world, they might look like monsters. To each other, they are salvation. It is not tenderness that keeps them tethered, but the sharp, undeniable truth that no one else could possibly understand them. Their motto is whispered like a prayer, breathed into the silence between their heartbeats. The couple who slays together stays together. Their beginning was not innocent. There was no candlelit dinner, no ordinary first kiss beneath the stars. They met in the chaos of fire and blood, when danger pressed against their skin and adrenaline tangled with desire. From that moment forward, they were inseparable. She loved the recklessness in him, the hunger that matched her own. He loved the way her eyes lit up, not with fear, but with ferocity. The way she reached for him with hands that could both cradle and kill. Tonight they sit on a rooftop, the city sprawled out beneath them like a graveyard waiting to be filled. He leans back, lighting a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his sharp grin. She curls beside him, resting her head on his shoulder, her lips still stained with someone else's blood. And yet, there is something tender here, something almost fragile. The way his hand brushes against hers, the way her laughter softens when it's just for him. They have carved out their own kind of love, jagged, brutal, but real. Around them, the underworld murmurs. People speak their names with a mix of awe and fear. They are not just killers. They are a legend stitched together by whispers, a pair of shadows that slip in and out of the city's darkest corners. Some admire them, some hunt them, and others simply pray they never cross their path. But even legends are vulnerable. And as the city breathes, shifting in ways unseen, the first cracks in their story begin to show. For now, though, they are untouchable. The night belongs to them. He tilts his head toward her, murmuring something only she can hear. She smiles, not a soft smile, but a sharp one. A smile that says she knows the world will burn before it takes them down. Together they rise, silhouettes framed against the dying glow of the skyline. There is work to be done. There is blood yet to spill. And there is a love between them so fierce it threatens to consume them both. In this darkness, they thrive. In this danger, they find meaning. And as their footsteps vanish into the echo of the city, the promise lingers in the air like smoke. This is only the beginning. The city never sleeps, but tonight, it seems to hold its breath. An abandoned warehouse looms against the skyline, its broken windows like hollow eyes watching the streets below. Inside, the air is thick with dust, the silence punctuated only by the scurrying of rats. A group of men gather around a table, littered with weapons and bottles, their laughter loud, careless, as if danger has never touched them. They don't know yet. They don't know that death is already in the room, waiting to be unveiled like a final act in a play. From the shadows, the lovers move as one. He circles left, her eyes track right. Their bodies mirror each other in a language they've long perfected, silent and precise. She grips her pistol like a lover's hand. He spins the blade between his fingers, like a conductor about to cue an orchestra. Together, they are the symphony, one that plays in screams and silence, in blood and breath. He strikes first, a swift, almost elegant movement, steel-kissing throat, a wet gasp cut short before anyone realizes what's happening. She steps in before the body hits the floor, her shot muffled, a bullet finding its mark in the chest of the next man. Chaos erupts, but it is their kind of chaos. To others it is carnage. To them it is choreography. Bullets fly, the air explodes with shouts, but they glide through it like dancers. Every motion smooth, every strike deliberate. His laughter bubbles up between clenched teeth, not mockery, but exhilaration. She smiles, her eyes sharp and bright, her breath quickening, not from fear, but from the rush of it all. This is their art. Not painting, not music, but the creation of silence where noise once lived. The men try to fight back. They shout orders, scramble for weapons, fire into the dark. But the lovers are already moving, always one step ahead, shadows splitting and converging. She leaps onto the table, boots scattering bottles to the ground, firing down at those scrambling below. He cuts through the confusion like a predator, his blade flashing under the dim light. In the space of minutes, the room is transformed. Laughter turned to screams, life turned to stillness. And then, as quickly as it began, it is over. The warehouse hums with silence again, broken only by the drip of blood onto concrete. He wipes his blade clean, breath steady, eyes already on her. She hops down from the table, landing softly, her gun still warm in her hand. Their eyes meet, and in that silence there is something electric. Not triumph, not relief, something deeper. She walks toward him slowly, her lips curved in that sharp smile. He tilts his head, a grin tugging at his mouth. They don't need words. Everything between them has already been said in the rhythm of their violence. She brushes past him, her hand grazing his arm, and together they leave the warehouse behind. Outside, the night greets them with cool air, the city's heartbeat steady once more. They vanish into it, two shadows swallowed by greater darkness. Somewhere in the distance, police sirens cry, but too late. They are already gone. For them, this was not just another job. It was communion, a ritual, proof that no matter how bloody, how brutal, they are strongest when they are together. And though the world outside trembles at the sound of their names, inside, in the quiet between them, there is only the echo of a promise unspoken. They will never let go. But promises are fragile things, even for those who seem unbreakable. And somewhere, in the underbelly of this city, others are already watching, already planning. For legends this bold, the shadows will not stay silent forever. The city stretches endlessly, a beast of steel and neon veins, its pulse carried in the hum of traffic, in the flicker of 1,000 windows glowing against the night. From a rooftop high above, you can see it all. Alleys twisting like arteries, bridges spanning out like ribs, and beneath the lights, a labyrinth where the powerful feed on the desperate, and the desperate do whatever it takes to survive. It is here, in this shadowed kingdom, that whispers of fear travel faster than bullets. And tonight, those whispers are about them. In back rooms of smoke-filled bars, names are spoken low, as if the sound itself might invite death closer. Some call them reckless, others call them brilliant. But all agree on one thing. The couple is unstoppable. Word spreads of their latest work, of the massacre in the warehouse, and with it comes an uneasy silence. For every man who admires them, there are two more who plot against them. In this city, power is as fleeting as breath, and even legends cast shadows long enough to step into. Inside a dimly lit club, the bass thunders like a heartbeat, bodies moving in waves of heat and sweat. At a back table, a man with sharp eyes and sharper ambition listens as his lieutenant recounts the lover's triumph. He leans forward, fingers tapping against his glass. And though he smiles, his eyes remain cold. They think they own the streets, he murmurs, but no one owns this city for long. Around him, the men nod. Plans are already forming, traps already whispered into existence. Elsewhere, in a casino glittering with false promises, another rival listens to the same story, his laughter echoing over the noise of slot machines. To him, they are not gods, but pawns. Dangerous pawns, yes, but pawns all the same. He talks of them like pieces to be sacrificed, his voice calm, measured, as if their downfall is already certain. Around every corner of the underworld, the couple's names stir hunger, envy, and fear. And together, those emotions are deadlier than any gun. But the lovers are not blind. They feel it. The shift in the air, the way eyes linger too long when they walk into a room, the silence that greets their laughter. On another rooftop, beneath the cold glow of the moon, she leans against the edge, her cigarette trailing smoke into the night. They're talking about us, she says softly, her voice carrying more weight than the casual tone suggests. He smirks, rolling the knife between his fingers. They've always talked. But even he feels the tension, the invisible threads tightening around them. His grin is sharp, but there's a flicker of something else in his gaze. Not fear, never fear, but anticipation. The kind of thrill that comes when the game grows dangerous enough to matter. The city itself seems to hold them in a delicate balance. Neon light paints her hair gold, shadows carve his features into stone, and between them stretches the kind of silence that only lovers and killers share. She flicks her cigarette into the night, watching it fall, and whispers, "We're legends now." He steps closer, his voice low, dangerous, almost tender. Legends don't live forever. Her smile curves, not soft but sharp. Then we burn brighter before we go out. Below them, the streets swarm with life, gangs dealing in alleys, cops turning blind eyes, innocents rushing home, unaware of the predators above. The city is alive, restless, and in its veins runs both opportunity and doom. Somewhere down there, unseen, forces stir against them. Alliances shift. Knives sharpen in the dark. But for now, they stand together, high above it all. Watching the city they've made theirs. Two shadows poised on the edge of glory and ruin. The city of shadows is awake, and its gaze is fixed on them. Morning is a rumor more than a sunrise. A pale light pressed thin against blinds that don't fully close. The safe house hums, the slow whir of a cheap fan, the soft tick of a kitchen clock, the hush of water moving through old pipes. On the table lie their tools, arranged like a ritual. A map with hand-drawn arrows, a burner phone with its face down, a knife laid so the edge catches what little light there is. She cuts an apple with the blunt efficiency of someone who learned long ago to make quiet tasks feel like armor. He rolls a shoulder as if the night still clings there, a bruise insisting on its own small story. The call came just before dawn. A broker they sometimes trust and never believe, voice threaded with jasmine and static, promising easy money and cleaner exits. "A meeting," the broker purrs. "Back room of the Velvet Ace. 1 hour. Walk in, walk out." They've heard those words before. They know what they're worth. Still, the city has a way of teaching you the same lesson until you either learn it or bleed it out. He pockets the burner. She watches the movement, the way his hand lingers, the way his thumb presses a fraction too long before he lets go. A detail small enough to ignore, large enough to file away. She slides the apple slice into her mouth, chews, swallows, and says nothing. They dress like a promise. Simple dark clothes, faces bare of anything that could pull focus. Before they leave, he reaches for his lighter. Steel, scuffed, an initial engraved so shallow it's almost a scratch. She notices the note tucked under it, a folded square, no bigger than a matchbook. He palms both, quick enough to pretend there was only one thing worth taking. Her expression doesn't change. Inside, something does. The Velvet Ace is all dim bulbs and velvet that has forgotten it was ever red. Music thumps from the front rooms, an anesthetic bass, and the smell of old liquor hangs like a curtain. They move as one shadow becomes two become one again, slipping past a bouncer whose eyes are bored into blindness. In the hallway, a red door waits. The broker said to knock twice, wait for a pause, then knock once more. He knocks once, waits nothing, turns the handle. Inside, the air is wrong, too still, too clean. No glass on the table, no ash in the tray, no careless human trail. A single lamp hums, and on the chair sits a mask, cheap plastic, painted with a smile. Their smile, the kind they leave behind when they want a rumor to do the walking for them. "Not ours," he says, but his voice tilts, a degree off-center. She steps closer, eyes sweeping the room, the vents, the corners. The floor plan they memorized, doesn't match what their bodies feel. The closet is 2 inches wider than it should be. The window is sealed with fresh paint. He checks the bathroom and finds a towel folded with hotel precision and a drain that smells like bleach. On the mirror, condensation writes a quiet question mark that nobody asked. Then the hiss, soft at first, like a sigh through teeth. Smoke unfurls from the vent above the lamp, a thin grey ribbon unspooling into the room. He's already moving, jacket over his mouth, gun ready. She's at the window with a blade under the paint, prying until it gives. The window lifts a grudging inch, enough to let in a lean sliver of air. Behind them, footsteps. 1 set, 2. A door they didn't use opens, and the soft weight of a silencer turns the air heavy. They don't wait. She dives low, a clean line of motion, and he pivots hard, firing where sound turns the room, a grunt, a stumble. The second set of steps retreats, quick and careful. The smoke thickens, tasting like a lie. She yanks the window higher and swings out first, landing on a narrow ledge 2 stories above a garbage-strewn alley. He follows, rolling onto his shoulder, teeth bared, not in pain but in concentration. A bullet kisses brick a foot from his head, and chips fly like dry rain. Down the fire escape, their boots a rattle that gets lost in the city's bigger noise. At the bottom, they split without speaking, meeting again 2 blocks over where a mural of saints has blistered in the sun. Breathless and steady, he tucks the burner into his pocket. She wipes a smear of dust from his cheek with the back of her hand. Her touch precise and not tender. "Who knew we'd be there?" she asks. "Everyone and no one," he says. "It smelled wrong. You opened early. You didn't stop me." They stand like that, the street running past them, time stretching strange. The words don't escalate. They calcify. She thinks of the note under his lighter. He thinks of the way she clocked the vent before she even saw the lamp. Somewhere between those thoughts is the space where trust used to sit, with both feet on the table, and a grin that said it would never leave. Back at the safe house, the fan still turns, the clock still ticks, but the room has shifted by a half-inch. He sets the burner on the table, thumb grazing the cracked corner of the screen. She sets her knife beside it, edge turned toward him. A habit of caution or a message, even she isn't sure. He finally unfolds the note, slow enough to show it's not a secret, quick enough to keep it from becoming a conversation. A number, scrawled in graphite. Under it, "Don't bring her." He folds it again, folds the lie down with it. "Who was on the other side of that door?" she asks. "Someone who doesn't know when to quit. Someone who knows us." He shrugs, but the movement is too sharp. "Everyone knows us." Silence grows a spine. She turns to the window, watching afternoon bruise into evening. He watches the curve of her shoulder and counts slow, as if there's a code in the distance between them that he can break with patience. When the light fades, the city flickers on like an apology. They don't fight, not loudly. Their voices stay low, even. They talk logistics, routes and shadows, the broker and what to do about the velvet A's. He insists they burn that contact and salt the ground. She wants one more call, one more chance to hear a voice shake. Neither yields, not because of control, but because yielding would require a level of faith that feels suddenly expensive. Night drips back over the rooftops. They lie in the same bed, bodies close, minds elsewhere. The window breathes a slow rectangle of streetlight onto the floor. His phone vibrates once against the nightstand. He lets it. She stares into the dark and mouths the words of their motto without sound, measuring their weight. Outside, the city turns its face just enough to show a new angle. In a back office, the broker pours a drink with a hand that trembles, stares at a ledger where a name has been crossed out in thick ink. In a quiet church, a rival lights a candle and smiles at the idea of saints listening. Across town, a kid with a cheap camera watches the Velvet Aces alley and prays to be paid for something that won't get him buried. Pieces move. Conversations repeat in new mouths. The trap didn't close today. There will be others. Near dawn, she rises without waking him and steps into the kitchen. The apple knife is still on the table. She picks up the burner, sees the cracked corner, the missed call. The number looks familiar in the way that danger always does, after you've taught yourself to love it. She sets it down, leaves it face up. When he enters, he sees it, sees that she saw it. And something inside both of them becomes defined not by words, but by what neither is willing to ask. They drink coffee that tastes like a compromise. They map a route that avoids the Velvet Ace by 3 miles and a lifetime. When they step into the hallway, the light above the door flickers once, twice, then steadies. He reaches for the lighter, taps it against his palm. She checks the weight of her gun and the quiet in her chest. They move as they always have, side by side, one heartbeat echoing the other. Only now there is a seam. You can't see it from across a room. You can feel it if you've earned the right to stand close. The city breathes around them. Somewhere, a siren starts. Somewhere else, someone smiles into a phone and says, "They took the bait. They keep walking." Legends don't live forever. But until the lights really go out, they are still the brightest thing in the dark. And the dark, suddenly, is full of eyes. The job is supposed to be simple. A handoff, cash for silence, one of those underworld exchanges that look so ordinary on paper. You almost forget it's built on bones. They meet their contact in a half-dead carnival ground on the edge of the city, where rusting rides creak in the wind and paint peels from clown faces that haven't smiled in decades. Neon letters that once spelled joy now flicker unevenly, casting the midway in a ghostly glow. The place smells of sugar burned long ago and iron that never left. He doesn't like it. His shoulders tense, as if the air itself has teeth. She smirks at his paranoia, her hand resting lightly on the holster at her hip. "Relax," she murmurs. "Sometimes ugly places are just ugly places." He shakes his head, scanning the shadows. Not tonight. The contact arrives late, his steps echoing too clearly on the cracked pavement. He's a thin man with a grin that looks glued on, carrying a duffel bag too heavy for comfort. He places it on the carousel's platform, the horses frozen mid-gallop, eyes staring blank and wide. "Payment for services rendered," he says, as if reading from a script. The lovers share a glance. She steps forward, unzipping the bag. Stacks of cash gleam under the weak lights, but something about the weight is wrong. She lifts a bundle, feels the density, the stiffness. Her lips curve, humor edged sharp. Printer ink still wet. Before he can answer, the carousel roars to life, its ancient motor groaning. The painted horses begin their slow circle, and in the mirrors between them, figures emerge. Men with guns, faces painted like clowns, grinning mouths stretched into grotesque parodies of joy. The carnival comes alive, not with laughter, but with violence. And in the chaos, the thin man vanishes, leaving the bag behind like bait. He curses, pulling her close as bullets spark against the carousel poles. She laughs, a sharp bark of delight, and fires back, her aim precise, even as she ducks behind a rusting horse. The carousel spins, mirrors flashing, lights flickering, a madhouse of motion where enemy shapes blur into grotesque reflections. To anyone else, it would be panic. To them, it is theater. He dives low, slashing the ankle of a man who thought the mirror would hide him. The body falls, twisting between the horses, and she uses the distraction to take down two more, her shots ringing like a drumbeat to their symphony. One of the clowns lunges, face painted with exaggerated tears, gun raised. She disarms him with a twist, then shoots him through the painted grin. "Now that's funny," she mutters, her lips curling. The fight spirals outward, spilling into the midway. Bullets shatter glass, rides scream awake after years of silence. The Ferris wheel groans as it begins to turn, its empty seats swaying, lit up in a broken sequence of red and blue. He uses the movement as cover, weaving between shadows, his blade a silver streak. She vaults over a shooting gallery counter, grabbing a rusted BB gun, only to swing it like a club into the face of the man hiding behind it. Her laughter fills the air, mingling with the music that sputters out of old speakers. A warped carnival tune, bright and wrong, all at once. Minutes stretch into something timeless. The ground is littered with masks, the stench of gunpowder sharp in the air. They stand back to back now, their breaths fast but steady, bodies moving as one as the last of the attackers falters. He throws his knife across the midway, catching the final man in the chest before he can reload. The silence that follows is loud, broken only by the mechanical wheeze of the Ferris wheel, still turning without passengers. She kicks the fake cash bag aside, her boot leaving a smear of blood across its surface. "They think we're a joke," she says, her voice flat but edged. He wipes his blade clean, eyes scanning the wreckage. "Let them laugh. They won't be laughing long." But even as he says it, the truth presses in. Someone knew they would come. Someone orchestrated this circus of death with care, with knowledge of their habits. Betrayal hangs in the air, thicker than the smoke from spent bullets. She feels it too, the way her laughter fades into quiet, her eyes narrowing as she studies the shadows that still cling to the rides. Together they leave the carnival, the echo of the calliope music following them out, warped and mocking. Their steps are steady, but in the silence between them, the first sparks of doubt crackle louder than gunfire. Trust, once seamless, now carries hairline fractures, and somewhere, in a room far from here, the broker raises a glass, smiling at the thought that legends are easier to kill when they start questioning each other. They go to the one place that has never lied to them, a grease-stained maze beneath the old rail viaduct, where engines sleep with their mouths open, and the floor is tattooed with oil. He calls it a shop. Everyone else calls it a sanctuary. Rook has patched their wounds and their weapons, swapped plates, burned paper, and once stitched a hole in his side while humming out-of-tune blues. If there's a man you can trust in a city built on barter and betrayal, it has always been Rook. The gate buckles upward with a metallic groan. Warm light spills out, amber and forgiving. The smell is comfortingly ugly. Solvent, rubber, old coffee. Rook appears from behind a stack of tires, wiping his hands on a ruined t-shirt, grins snack-toothed and familiar. "You two look like you ran through a parade and bit it back," he says. "Come in. Close that door. Cops are fishing tonight." They step inside. On a bench, a rifle sits in pieces like a puzzle, waiting for a patient mind. Against the wall, passports bloom in a drying rack, their false faces turned to the heat lamp. She clocks everything without staring. A new camera bubble high in the corner, a bright nickel padlock on the office that used to be dull brass. A second coffee cup, sweating beside Rook's. Still warm, ring of condensation unbroken. He sees her see it and picks up the extra cup, tosses it gently into the trash. "Client forgot his manners," he says. "I corrected him." "Word?" he asks, but he doesn't wait for it. "I heard about the carnival. Cheap clowns, expensive bullets. Bounty boards are lit like Christmas. Whoever's paying wants it public." He whistles, the sound thin. "You sure know how to make a city nervous. We need clean wheels, fresh papers, and a line on whoever's buying jokes with counterfeit cash," he says. Done, maybe," Rook answers, motioning toward the office. "Come back here. Safer to talk with the compressor running." Drowns out nosy microphones. The compressor thuds alive, a steady, lung-like rhythm. Inside the office, the light runs cooler, the air oddly still. A file sits open on the desk, 2 passports face down, and next to them, a tidy aluminum case that screams, "Don't ask questions." Rook shuts the door, flicks the latch. "Laugh if you want," he says, half-smile, "but I figured I'd finally act like a professional." She doesn't laugh. The latch is new. The vents are new. The hum in the ceiling is not just the compressor. He pulls out a chair for her. Chivalry he never bothers with. She remains standing. He stays close to the door, thumb resting where a lock would fail. "Your names are Mud," Rook says softly. "Somebody upstairs put real money behind making you cautionary tales. The kind of figure that makes friends imagine they've been enemies all along." His eyes flick to him. "I can float you a river out. Boats leave at dawn and deadlines." "And your rate?" he asks. "Call it a favor," Rook says. He smiles like a man trying to remember how. "Call it debt clearance." The word drops and doesn't bounce. She watches his hands. They are steady. Too steady. He scratches at his jaw with the wrong knuckle, the tell he used to have when lying to cops, not to friends. The ceiling exhales. Faint. The whisper of air, shifting direction. "Rook," she says, "what did you promise and to whom?" He closes his eyes for a heartbeat, opens them calmer than a man should be. "Everyone promises something," he says. "Me?" "I promise to keep breathing." The hiss is almost polite at first. a ribbon of mist uncoiling from the vent above the desk. Sweet-smelling, clinical. He's already moving, hauling the chair up to smash the vent grill, planting his jacket over his mouth. She grabs the aluminum case and slams it into the glass of the office window. It webs, but doesn't break. Double-paned, tempered. Rook doesn't flinch. Non-lethal, he says, voice muffled by guilt. He'll sleep, then he'll go away. That's all they want. They? He throws back, half cough, half laugh. Which they pays for this kind of pillow? Rook's jaw twitches. You know which? He points at the passports. Those are real. Open sea in 4 hours. But it's one ticket. That was the price. You cut loose and you live. Don't bring her. The graphite scroll under a lighter. The number burning a hole in a burner. The seam inside her chest widens silently, like a fabric catching. That note, she says. Yours? Rook folds a confession into a nod. Thought one of you might show. Thought you. He flicks his chin toward him. Might be the one who wants to live more than you want to be brave. He winces. Call it a gambler's read. Smoke thickens. No, not smoke. Something cleaner, meaner. He yanks the desk drawer and rips out a length of cord to tie a rag around his face. She flips the aluminum case open. Syringes, vials, money, a black card that buys silence. She grabs the card and jams it into the window frame, prying at a latch hidden under paint. The glass lurches by half an inch. Air eddies. The hiss crows teeth. Rook, he says, voice low, not pleading. We kept you alive when the East Docks wanted you salted. We let you keep that finger the time you cheated a captain with no humor. You owe us more than a lullaby. I owe the living, Rook whispers, and somebody put a timer on mine. Sit, sleep. Let me carry the sin. He steps forward, close enough to be a friend, close enough to break a nose. He does neither. Instead, he pivots, plants his boot against the wall, under the vent, and kicks hard, cracking the duct box. The hiss stutters. She jams the case lid into the window gap and wrenches. The pain gives with a yelp. A razor of fresh air cutting the chemical sweetness. Rook curses, lunges for the door. She's faster. The aluminum case snaps shut on his wrist like a steel mouth. He gasps, drops the key. You're making this worse, he chokes. It was always worse, she says, and there's no heat in it, only math. They don't kill him, not yet. They need the door, and he opens it with hands that shake like wet paper. Outside, the compressor thump becomes an alarm in the bones. In the shop, a corrugated shutter starts rolling down over the street exit. Automatic, new. Someone else is in this. Rook shouts, "They're almost here," which is either a warning or a countdown. They run. Through a corridor of hanging bumpers and glinting chrome, across a floor painted with escape routes that lead nowhere. He sees the emergency hatch at the far wall, a knee-high panel they've used twice. It has a fresh lock he doesn't recognize. She slides on oil, regains balance, fires 2 shots into the padlock. Sparks, metal screams. The panel yawns, air pours, cold and black. Behind them, a second door slams. Boots on concrete. Voices in headsets. The word Two crackles, then separate. Rook backpedals, hands up, as if he can uninvent the moment. I told them, non-lethal, he says, desperate. I told them, stop telling, she snaps, and shoves him aside with the heel of her palm. He stumbles, but doesn't fall. He doesn't shoot them in the back. That's the only grace left. They drop into the crawl space, bellies to cold metal, elbows grinding on bolts. He leads. She pushes the panel closed with her heel, plunging them into a tunnel where the city's old breath lives. Steam, ghost water, rats that go silent when death goes by. Above, boots flood the shop, orders ricochet, and someone slaps at the fresh ruined vent, swearing. They crawl until crawl becomes climb, until the tunnel crooks up toward a grate that trembles with night traffic. He shoulders it, teeth clenched, and the grate gives with a groan, old as the tracks. They rise into an alley that smells like rain that forgot to fall. The sky is the color of a bruise at the edge of dawn. They walk because running would draw eyes. They breathe through cloth until their lungs stop arguing. A block away, sirens braid into one bright rope. A drone's red bead winks overhead, searching for heat signatures that don't want to be found. They keep to the cold shadows of dumpsters and unlit billboards. Two figures dismantling themselves into smaller pieces. At the mouth of the alley, she stops. You had his number, she says. Not an accusation, a statement shaped like a door. I didn't call, he says. I didn't go. But you considered the mathematics, she says. I always consider the mathematics. Then I pick you. She watches him the way you look at a horizon you aren't sure is moving. The seam is there, undeniable. It hasn't split, it hasn't healed. It exists, a thin ache. She nods once, practical as a tourniquet. We burn the network, she says. Broker first, then whoever bought the carnival. We cut Rook loose. We cut him loose alive, he asks. For now. A beat. I'm not in the habit of saving the same man twice. Behind them, under the viaduct, smoke, real smoke, rises from the shop's vents, dark and wounded, as if the building itself is exhaling a confession it held too long. Rook will live if he chooses to. Their enemies will keep coming if they choose to breathe. The city adjusts its mirrors, angles its knives, hums to itself about hungry legends. Losing sleep, they disappear into the waking streets. Sun not yet making promises. Hand falls into hand because muscle memory is a kind of truth, too. Above, the drone passes and does not see them. Below, the tunnels remember their names and keep quiet. Somewhere far off, a candle is lit for the sake of a story. Somewhere closer, a ledger line is drawn and a price increases. The air still tastes faintly of something meant to make you sleep. They do not sleep. They walk. The motel is the kind of place that pretends it isn't dying. Fluorescent letters hum and flicker above the office, buzzing like trapped insects. And the walls are papered with decades of nicotine ghosts. Inside their room, the wallpaper curls at the seams. The carpet smells of old rain and mildew, and the bed sags as if it remembers every body that ever fell into it. It is not sanctuary, not even shelter. It is pause. She sits cross-legged at the edge of the bed, gun across her lap, cleaning it with a care that feels almost tender. Each swipe of the cloth is a heartbeat, steadying her hands when her chest feels unsteady. He leans against the dresser, a half-empty bottle of whiskey sweating in his grip. His shirt unbuttoned, enough to reveal the fresh bruise blooming across his ribs. The air between them is thick, filled with silence that says more than words dare. Finally, she breaks it. Rook would have sold us down to the marrow if we hadn't stopped him. Her voice is flat, but her jaw tightens on every word. He tips the bottle, studies the way the amber catches the weak light. He already did. Their eyes meet, hers sharp and searching, his shadowed with something heavier. In that glance lives a storm, anger, grief, betrayal, and underneath it all, the desperate thread of love that refuses to sever, even when trust is breaking apart. She sets the gun aside, her hands suddenly restless. How many more do you think? How many friends will turn? How many doors will slam before we can't even find a floor to stand on? All of them, he says quietly, not unkind, but not you. The words land like a vow, but she doesn't let them settle. Then what was the note? He stiffens, every muscle a fuse, lit too close to the flame. For a long moment, he says nothing, just stares at the bottle, watching the liquor swirl like smoke. Then with a slow exhale, he admits, it was real. Rook wrote it, but I didn't take the deal. Her face doesn't change, but her chest does. Something inside it twists. Didn't take it, she repeats, soft but sharp. I thought about it, he says, voice low, honest in the way honesty cuts. For half a second, I thought, maybe it'd keep you safe if you what? She snaps, standing now, fury sparking in her movements. If you left me behind, you think I'd survive alone? You think I'd want to? His jaw clenches. He doesn't answer. Silence roars between them, heavier than the motel walls can hold. Then in a motion sudden as a knife unsheathed, she crosses the space, grabs the bottle from his hand, and smashes it against the dresser. Shards scatter, whiskey bleeding into the carpet. Don't you ever mistake abandonment for love, she hisses, her face inches from his. For a heartbeat, they stand locked in that fury. Then something cracks, not in anger, but in desperation. His hands find her arms, rough, trembling. Her breath stutters, caught between rage and the ache that has always lived under it. And in that fragile instant, violence gives way to intimacy. He pulls her close, his forehead pressed to hers, his voice breaking into the quiet. I don't know how to love you without destroying myself. Her eyes close, tears burning but refusing to fall. Then let yourself be destroyed, because if I lose you, I'm already gone. The kiss that follows isn't gentle, it's raw, desperate, filled with the taste of whiskey and blood and everything they can't say. Their bodies collide onto the sagging bed, not for pleasure, but for survival, clinging to each other as if the world outside has already ended. Fingers dig into skin, breaths tangle, hearts pound in a rhythm that feels like both war and surrender. When it's over, they lie tangled in the aftermath, the room thick with sweat and silence. Her head rests on his chest, rising and falling with his breaths. And for once, the sound steadies her. His hand strokes her hair with a gentleness that surprises even him. For a fleeting moment, there is peace. Fragile, fleeting, but real. But peace doesn't last in their world. It never does. A car pulls into the lot outside, tires crunching gravel. The rumble of an engine cuts, replaced by doors slamming, boots scraping against pavement. Voices murmur low, the kind of tones that carry weapons. She lifts her head, eyes sharp, hand reaching instinctively for the gun on the nightstand. He's already moving, pulling on his shirt, checking the window. 3 men. Dark suits, heavy coats despite the heat. Their movements are deliberate, their faces grim. One of them lifts a walkie to his mouth, mutters something too quiet to hear. The others fan out, one heading for the stairwell, one crossing toward the office. "They've found us," he says, the words cold, steady. Her hand grips his wrist, tight. Then we don't wait for the knock. They move together, fluid, practiced. She slips ammo into her gun, tucks a knife into her boot. He checks the back window, calculates angles, counts seconds. Outside, the footsteps grow closer, the echo of the inevitable pressing against thin motel walls. For a moment, he looks at her. Really looks. The sweat still on her skin, the fire still in her eyes. "Whatever happens," he whispers, "we end it together." Her lips curve into a smile that's both promise and defiance. "The couple who slays together stays together," he finishes, and the words are steel. The door handle rattles. A shadow moves across the window. The first bullet cracks through the glass like lightning, and the world catches fire again, fire again, fire again, fire again, fire again, fire again, fire. Glass bursts inward like rain that forgot how to fall. He drags her sideways, behind the dresser, as splinters of mirror and motel window salt the air. The door buckles, then slams open against the chain, a voice on the other side saying, "Calm as a weather report." 2 inside, no police, keep it clean. She rolls, fires once through the sagging mattress. A grunt, a thud, the dull clatter of a weapon across tile. He takes the bathroom, steam-scarred mirror, shower curtain like a wet flag, and yanks the towel bar from the wall. The first man through eats it across the jaw. The second stumbles over him and meets the crown of a ceramic lid. Bodies fold. No time to count. "Back," she says, already moving. He is there, ripping the curtain from its rings. Behind it, not porcelain, but a cutout. Someone else's habit of survival. A maintenance hatch has been sawed into the drywall, patched, painted motel beige. She jams her knife into the seam and rips. The hatch gives with a groan, a breath of cold air kissing their faces. They crawl into the ribs of the building, insulation brushing their shoulders like dead grasses. Behind, a muffled command, masks on, then the hiss of fabric, the scrape of plastic. He glances back through the crack. The men in suits pull on glossy white smiles, the same cheap grin left for them at the club. In the hall's half-light, those painted mouths are worse than blank. They belly through dust until the duct opens over the laundry room. He drops first, lands in a drift of warm sheets. She follows, already scooping 2 uniforms from a rolling bin. In a breath, they are housekeeping. Caps low, collars high, a cart pushed like a shield down a hall that reeks of lemon and secrets. One of the smiling men rounds the corner. The painted grin faces them. The eyes behind it sweep without catching. "Any guests in 214? He asks, voice flat through the mask. She nods at the card. Blasé. Complains about hot water. Manages getting an earful. The lie wears a tired shrug. He believes it because he wants to, because masks are easier than faces. He moves on. They don't run, they drift. Out the side door, past a newspaper rack, still hawking yesterday's tragedies, into the glare-blue morning, 2 blocks away, inside a diner that survives by being forgettable. They slide into a booth and let the coffee arrive before the adrenaline leaves. The bell over the door chimes, harmless as a toy. He fishes a phone from his pocket, not the burner, a dead man's from the bathroom tiles. Its lock screen is a selfie, blank wall, the top of a plastic smile, the bottom of a tattoo. 3 crooked ellipses like a constellation misremembered. He taps the emergency contacts. 1 name. Harlequin. 1 location ping. Tonight, Orpheum Hall. Gala. Masks required. She watches the steam from her cup, lean and break. "They want us seen," she says. "They want a performance." He scrolls to the photos. A shot of a stage, crimson curtain, white balloons roped into flowers. Another of a gilded invitation embossed with a jester's face. He turns the phone so she can see. Then we give them one. They leave their uniforms in a dumpster behind the diner and walk until the city swallows the motel smell. A thrift store yields what they need. Black suits that remember other shoulders. A dress that clings like a secret. In a costume shop that exists only between noon and dusk. They choose masks. Hers, a half face of matte black that cuts her cheekbones clean. His, a thin domino that turns his gaze into something mythic and unreadable. She pockets a 3rd. A cheap plastic smile. And doesn't explain why. Evening stains the edges of buildings. The Orpheum wakes like a beast born to be watched. Columns lit the color of coins, steps brushed clean. Doormen in polished shoes. Guests arrive in a stream, feathers and velvet, laughter like chimes. The security team is theatrical, but real. Earpieces hide under painted curls, scanners glow at the edge of the red carpet. He touches her wrist. Once, twice, their old code for eyes, exits. She answers with a squeeze. That means I see them. Inside, chandeliers bloom overhead, throwing warm light onto a sea of hidden faces. A string quartet saws something elegant in a corner, while a woman in a fox mask pretends to listen. At the far end, the stage yawns behind the curtain. Above it, a balcony box sits in shadow, a silhouette seated alone. The shape lifts a hand, a small wave meant for no one, and them alone. They split without seeming to. He finds the bar, becomes weight and silence, the kind of presence that makes people talk just to fill it. She drifts along the room's edge, fingers trailing over gilt frames, catching scraps of speech like confetti. Price has doubled. The couple's luck won't hold. Tonight or never. Rook is here. Not in person. He isn't that brave, but in rumor. The mechanic's gone to ground. Someone in an obsidian mask says, "Bored." Doesn't matter. We've got new hands for the wheel. The word broker flickers across a conversation like a match. She follows it to the balcony stairs. Halfway up, a guard with a lion's face steps aside. "Private," he says, not expecting an argument. She tilts her head, lets her dress whisper, lets her mouth curl around a lie gentler than breath. "I'm expected," she says, and hands him the plastic smile like a coin. He accepts it without looking down and opens the gate as if bribed by a charm he doesn't understand. In the box, the silhouette becomes a person in a harlequin mask. Diamonds of black and white, mouth painted into a permanent, almost laugh. A glass rests easy in a gloved hand, the other toys with a ring, set with a shard of mirror. The voice is familiar, and not. The brokers purr through a throat made of electricity, modulated, dislocated. "You clean up beautifully," the harlequin says. "I was afraid the motel carpet would clash with the velvet." She closes the door behind her. The noise of the party becomes ocean sound. "You tried to make us ghosts," she says. "It didn't take." "Not for lack of effort," the harlequin replies, amused. "You've made the city entertaining again." The mask tilts. But entertainment is always scheduled. Tonight, for instance. 9:52 to be precise. On the floor, the curtain trembles. A stagehand checks a rope, whispers to another. Timing, cues. He is in the crowd below, watching with the eyes he wears when he hunts. Not hungry, not yet, but ready. On the bar, his hand folds a napkin in half again. North exit, compromised. He palmed the note to a waiter who owes him a debt. It will find her if it needs to. It won't. She reads rooms like maps. "Who pays?" she asks. "Who put a price on us, rich enough to make rats think they're wolves?" The harlequin laughs softly. "You always ask such direct questions. It's charming, if naive." A gloved finger taps the ring. Her reflection fractures into a dozen shards, each one looking back with a slightly different doubt. "But since we're friends, temporary conditional friends, I'll tell you a story. Once upon a time, a city discovered a pair of storms wearing human faces. First the city cheered, then the city rebuilt all its roofs. The roofers got rich. The storms got famous. The people who own the sky began to feel inconvenienced." "Names," she says. "Names are masks," the harlequin says, and lifts the ring so that only one shard of her remains unbroken. "You of all people should know." Below, the quartet stumbles. The conductor of this little pageant steps on stage, smiling under a bird mask. "Ladies and gentlemen," he calls, "prepare to witness an unmasking." Laughter floats up, delighted, easy. It doesn't know what kind of hunger it's feeding. He's no longer at the bar. He has ghosted to the side curtain, one hand on the rope that holds the drape aloft. Two of the white smile men stand in the wings, hands under tuxedo jackets, waiting for a cue that will never sound the way they expect. He counts the beats of the quartet's recovery. He mouths now toward the balcony only because he can't help himself. She's already moving. She steps close to the harlequin, as if to share a secret, and closes a hand over the mirrored ring. Her whisper is the only soft thing left in her. "You don't get to watch." She twists. The ring snaps from the glove. The glass bites her palm. Blood beads. A small, bright punctuation. She smears it over the smile she brought, pressing the plastic grin onto the broker's mask, like a second mouth. "Now you look like what you are," she says. On the floor, the lights die. Not to black, just a heartbeat of dark that unhooks the room from itself. He yanks the rope. The curtain drops wrong. The painted garden behind it swings forward like a door, revealing not a magician's dove, but two men with white grins and nothing to hide behind. The crowd gasps, a sound that tastes first of delight and then of understanding. He moves through the shock like it was made for him, takes one smile by the wrist, and shows him the floor. The other lunges and eats velvet. The bird-masked MC stammers, flails for control. In the balcony, the harlequin claws at the blood-slicked smile. She pins the gloved wrist to the rail and leans close. "Keep talking," she says. "Tell me a name, or I let the city see the face that sells them their weather." The harlequin stills. The voice loses its electricity. "You think I'm the center?" the broker asks, almost tender. "I'm a middleman with better shoes. The money comes from a foundation with a choir boy name and a board that likes to collect curiosities. Tonight's auction item is you." A breath. "And him. Lot numbers?" she asks. The harlequin laughs without joy. 1 and 2. She takes the ring, the glove, the certainty. Below, he has already found the emergency corridor that runs like a vein behind the stage. He looks up once, and she is there, at the balcony's edge, all angles and intent. A shadow that has decided to be both refuge and weapon. He holds up a single finger. 1 minute. She nods. 30 seconds is enough. When the lights return, they return too bright. The MC tries to soothe the room with charm and fails. Security hustles. Donors bristle. The white smiles are gone, or rather, they're being carried, decorously, toward an exit that leads straight to questions. The harlequin has vanished as well, leaving a smear of red on a plastic grin and a ring that no longer belongs to anyone. In the corridor, they find each other without looking. He presses the purloined phone and a folded program into her hand. On the back, in tidy font, a schedule. Lot 1, Lot 2, Special Collection. A note inked over it that isn't from the printer. Lights out at 9:52. "Someone else planned the blackout," he says. "Good," she answers. "We'll borrow it." They slip into the skeleton of the building. Catwalks, ladders, the spine of truss where the house lights live. The clock on his watch crawls toward 9:51. Below, the crowd settles into its seats again, their curiosity sharper now, their masks tighter. On the stage, an empty pedestal waits under a velvet cloth. A screen behind it glows with the words, "Reveal." He looks at her, and for a moment, all the rooms between them vanish. "If they offer you a door," he says, "you don't take it." She smiles, not sharp this time, not soft either. "Then hold the wall." The second blackout arrives, like a breath held too long. They pull it, not with a switch, but with a choice. In the dark, the two of them move. Masks come off in a dozen directions, and none of them matter. Somewhere, a broker curses into a dead earpiece. Somewhere, a board member discovers that being afraid is not the same as being alive. When the lights return, the pedestal is empty. The velvet cloth lies on the floor like a tongue bitten through. And on the screen, there is nothing to reveal. Only a phrase, written in a hand that just learned how to tremble. "We choose our faces. They are already gone. Back in the breathing world, where streets remember footsteps." She holds the ring that fractured her, and he holds the schedule that tried to sell them. Between their palms, a plan takes shape. Not clean, not safe. But theirs, trust is still a seam. But tonight, it held. Tomorrow we'll ask again. For now, the city turns its head, and for once, it does not recognize them. The city exhales stormlight. Thunder crouches low against the horizon, a warning more than a promise. They've made it to a warehouse by the docks, a place that smells of brine and old diesel, the kind of smell that lives in your hair even after you leave. The night is thick, the air swollen with humidity, and every shadow feels like it's listening. He paces along the concrete floor, blade flashing in his hand like a restless thought. She sits on a crate, stripping her gun, her movements sharp, each snap of metal louder than it needs to be. Between them lies the program they stole from the Orpheum, its folded corners damp from her palm, the words Lot 1, Lot 2 burned into their minds. They are commodities now, curiosities, trophies, prey. You heard what the broker said, she mutters, not looking up. We're for sale? He slams the knife into the crate beside her, the wood splintering. Not anymore. Her gaze flicks to his face. Sweat beads at his temple, but it isn't the heat. It's the weight of something else. He's unraveling, and she sees it. She stands, slow, deliberate. You're angry at them. Be angry at them. Not at me, but his chest heaves. His voice lowers. You asked me once what I'd do to keep you safe. And now you know. I'd sell myself before I'd let them touch you. I'd burn the world if it meant you lived. Her jaw tightens. And what if I don't want to live without you? For a beat, they stare at each other across the small distance. Too close. Too far. The storm outside presses against the walls, making the air inside electric. Finally, he breaks. Voice raw. Then we're cursed, aren't we? Because I can't love you without turning into a weapon, and I can't stop being a weapon long enough to just... His hand fists in his hair. Just love you. Her hands are on him before he can step away, grabbing his shirt, pulling him down so their foreheads touch. Then fight me, she hisses. If you're going to make war out of love, then don't point it at yourself. Point it at me. He freezes, breathing hard, the storm inside him crashing into hers. And then it shatters. Their mouths meet, not like lovers seeking comfort, but like enemies clashing blades. It's furious, bruising, their teeth knocking, their breath harsh, fingers dig into skin, pulling, shoving, clutching, as if violence is the only language they can still trust. The storm breaks above, her thunder slamming the sky open. Rain pelts the warehouse roof, each drop a bullet against tin. Inside, they collapse back onto the crate, tangled, panting, desperate. Their kiss turns to something softer, but only because they've burned themselves hollow. Her tears smear against his jaw. His hands shake when he brushes them away. I'm still here, she whispers, like a mantra. He laughs, choked and bitter. So am I, that's the problem. Before she can answer, headlights slash through the warehouse's broken windows. Engines growl outside, multiple, heavy. Voices bark orders, echoing against the storm. She grabs her gun, he pulls his blade free. And in a heartbeat, the intimacy is gone, replaced by the sharp edge of survival. The doors slam open. Men in tactical gear flood inside, faceless behind night vision goggles, rifles raised. The lovers move like instinct, like muscle memory carved into bone. She fires into the first wave, each shot precise, each echo swallowed by thunder. He dives low, knife flashing, a predator in close quarters. The fight is a blur of light and dark, of blood and rainwater rushing through the cracks in the floor. But this time, it isn't enough. For every body they drop, 2 more take its place. Grenades hiss smoke into the air, acrid and blinding. A spotlight from outside cuts through the haze, pinning them in harsh white. They're not here to kill. They're here to take. She coughs, eyes streaming. It's a trap, she chokes. He grabs her wrist, dragging her toward the side door. But a figure steps into their path. Black mask, rifle slung low, voice amplified and calm. Stand down. You're already sold. The words hit harder than any bullet. For a split second, she falters, her chest heaving with disbelief. He doesn't falter, he hurls his knife at the figure, even as he yanks her through the smoke. The blade strikes, the man stumbles, but another takes his place instantly. Boots thunder behind them, the hunt closing in. They crash through the side door into sheets of rain, sprinting across the dock. The ocean heaves below, black and endless. Floodlights snap on, sweeping across the water. And in their glare rises a ship. Massive, waiting, its decks crowded with more masked figures. The auction isn't a rumor. It's here. And the prizes are already running. Her grip on his hand tightens until her knuckles whiten. We can't fight them all. He looks at her, eyes burning. Then we don't fight them. She stares at him, drenched, shaking, heart pounding. Then what? He pulls her close, voice low, fierce, unshakable. Then we make sure if they take us, they choke on us. The rain hammers down, the floodlights blind, the hunters close in, and the storm, above and within, roars with the sound of war made out of love. Rain needles their faces, floodlights cutting harsh geometry out of the night. Engines scream, boots hammer. They run anyway, down a slick spine of dock, left into a canyon of stacked containers, where sea wind catches and howls, where every echo sounds like a trap rehearing itself. A spotlight skates past, blind white. They flatten against corrugated steel, breaths bound to the thunder. Options? She asks, voice a thread pulled taut. We don't fight the ocean, he says. We make it fight for us. A masked man rounds the corner, rifle up. She moves first, 2 steps, 1 strike, a quieted breath. He takes the headset, snaps it open. Channel 3, command net. He fits it to her ear, keeps the mic for himself. Team 2, this is North Watch, he says in a bored tone that belongs to men who are paid too much to be awake. Redirect to Bravo staging. Loads shifted. Captain wants eyes. Static, then copy, redirecting. Footsteps veer. A slice of the net believes a new truth. Farther on, a crane looms black against the storm, its cables singing. Below it, a tug idles, squat and loyal, rain rattling on its roof. He points. If we can move the crane, we can cut the dock in half, she finishes, already moving. The container ladder bites cold into her palms as she climbs, rainwater spilling into her sleeves. He vaults after her, the 2 of them ghosts made of breath and will. On the catwalk, the wind hits hard, shoving at them with big, invisible hands. The control cab is a glass box, lit sickly green. Inside, no operator, just a bank of switches and a panel of numbers that blink like a tired heartbeat. He wipes rain from the controls. Rook could open this thing in his sleep, he mutters, and then stops because the name is a wound they agreed not to touch. She doesn't flinch. She pulls the dead man's phone from her pocket and presses it into his hand. Call him, she says. Collect what he owes and give him a way to live to regret it. He hesitates. A beat, a breath, 1,000 unspoken things, then dials. It rings too long. Another light sweeps, and the dock below answers with the glitter of rifles. Finally, a click, and Rook's voice, raw. If this is a ghost, hang up, he says. It's the living, he answers. E-stocks, Crane too. You put a new brain in it. I need your hands. Silence blooms, then collapses. They'll kill me for talking to you. Rook rasps. They'll kill me for not talking to you too. A strangled laugh. Fine. You've got 30 seconds of me being useful. He rattles numbers. Rook feeds him a sequence, curses at his own genius, tells him which safety to lie to and which gauge to ignore. On the last switch, the crane shivers like an animal waking. The trolley moans forward. Below, men shout. Someone fires up at the cab. Glass crazes in a white spider. She drags him down, and the bullet misses his head by a thought. Good morning, Rook says in his ear, jailhouse calm now that the race has started. I'll buy you 3 minutes of noise. After that, the harbour master's going to wonder why your toy's singing wrong. A pause. You don't owe me my life a third time. Consider this me returning the change. The line dies. He slams the joystick. The crane's spreader swings in a wide arc, chain screaming, and kisses a stack of containers. Metal shrieks, stacks shift, and with a groan bigger than the storm, a wall of steel slides, tips, and crashes to the dock. The path from the floodlit yard to the ship becomes a jagged landscape of fallen teeth. Men scatter, radios panic. The tug barks a startled horn. Move, she says, and they do, down the catwalk, into the bowels of rain and war. They don't make it 10 yards before another problem puts on a face. 3 men fan out from the shadow of a crane leg, rifles low, movements precise but unhurried. Not Foundation tactical. Different teeth. The one in the middle wears confidence like a suit. Even under the plastic smile you can see the smirk. The casino laugh, given a body. You too, he says, voice amused beneath the mask. My compliments on the Orpheum, my condolences on the bounty. He gestures lazily, and his men don't raise their rifles any higher because they don't need to. We hate the church boys as much as you do. The enemy of my enemy is a convenient tool. We're no one's tool, she says, eyes flat. He inclines his head. Of course you are. You're everyone's. He taps his ear. Northwatch wants to feed you to the choir, so they can eat you later. I want to ruin their appetite. Give me something I can sell, something that embarrasses them, and I'll buy you 3 minutes of distraction you won't survive without. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't need to. He slides the mirrored ring from his pocket, the one that fractured her face into 12 doubting pieces, and tosses it to the man. A souvenir, he says. Find the thumbprint. It's not ours. The man catches it, gloved fingers, testing weight and lie. Pretty, he says. Ugly, too. Perfect. He jerks his chin toward the dockyard. 3 minutes. To his men. Make noise. Noise arrives like a drunk god. Muzzle flashes strobe in the rain as the new crew opens up, not at the lovers, but at the sky, at the containers, at the idea of order. Sirens snarl from the yard gates. For a brief and glorious moment, everyone is shooting in the wrong direction. They sprint for the tug. The cabin door yields to a shoulder. Inside, gauges trembling, a wheel that steered lies, a throttle that wants a story. He shoves it forward. The diesel coughs, catches, roars. Lines groan as the tug strains against them. Cut us free, he barks, and she's already out in the rain with a knife that loves rope. 2 slashes and they're loose, the tug lurching away from the dock like a dog yanked by a phantom. Bow toward her, she says, meaning the auction ship, meaning the black belly of the thing that wants to swallow them. We'll never get a boarding ladder. Who needs a ladder? He answers. When you've got a storm. They angle into the chop, the tug bucking, spray like knives. The ship looms, black hull, painted name sanctimonious and bland, the kind of philanthropy that launders sins. Floodlights rake the water. Figures lean over the rail with hooks and orders. He cuts the engines at the last breath and rides momentum into the ship's shadow. The tug slams, rubber fenders squeal. She fires a grapnel she does not technically have. Just a length of line knotted to a hook stolen from the tug's toolbox, and it bites into a scupper grill above. After you, he says. Not this time. She clamps the line to a cleat, plants a foot on the rail, and is up, hand over hand, body a line of intent. He follows, and the ocean tries to erase them both, and fails. They spill onto a maintenance walkway, low and wet, under the main deck's splendor. Up here, men in evening masks pretend they aren't villains. Down here, the ship shows its machinery and its teeth. He palms the dead man's phone, finds the schematic Rook texted in a mercy he didn't name. A crude map of the ship's lower decks, 2 red X's drawn by a hand that had to imagine. Power trunk, fuel manifold. He looks at her. We can't sink her without turning the harbor into a graveyard, he says. Then we don't sink, she answers. We starve. They move through the under, the ship's ribs tolling with storm. He jimmies an access panel. She watches corners and clocks breaths. 2 white smile men pass, their laughter squeezed thin by the masks. She waits until they've gone, then takes them both without theater. A choke, a hush, 2 bodies return to the ship like bad cargo. At the first red X, the power trunk throbs. A conduit thick as a thigh, humming with captured lightning. He opens the breaker cabinet and sees the lie of redundancy. 2 feeds, 2 backups, all pretending to be unbreakable. He glances at his watch. 3 minutes, feels already spent. We don't cut, he says. We overfeed. Make the lights eat themselves. He pulls 2 jumpers from his pocket. Lengths of wire he's carried since before her. Talismans against the days when the world needs a short circuit. She holds the panel steady as he bridges what should never meet. The smell blooms fast. Hot dust, angry copper. Somewhere above, a violin screeches to a stop. The ship flickers, once like a blink, then again longer. Shouts skitter along the deck. The rain goes very, very loud. Now fuel, she says. Not fire, flood. The second red X sits behind a door, stamped with a pictogram of a flame that says, "Please don't." He pops the latch with the hilt of his knife. Inside, pipes gleam, valves labeled with numbers that aren't honest. An emergency release handle crouches behind a clear cover. He smashes it with his elbow, grits against the sting. When he pulls, the ship shudders, as if he's tugged a nerve. Somewhere deep, pumps change their minds. Fuel meant for engines diverts into containment. A belly that fills, but will not burn if the gods are kind, and their math holds. She presses her forehead to his for one heartbeat, and the storm disappears. No more single tickets, she says. No more doors with one hinge. No more notes, he answers. Then hear me. If they drag me away, I don't let them, he cuts in. And if they do anyway, then I walk through fire, he says. And for once, it sounds like something other than a metaphor. The lights strobe again, indecisive. He hears the ship's big heart choke on its own rhythm. Above, the auction's microphone squeals, dies, returns a ghost. From the dock, another noise rolls in, a siren not the police use, a horn that belongs to men with their own kinds of law. Their 3 minutes of distraction has purchased a riot on the pier. They start up the ladder toward the human part of the ship, toward the stage where lot numbers replace names. Their footsteps ring like a countdown. At the top, he stops her. One promise, he says. Not heroics, not sacrifice. Just this. If we have to choose, we choose together. She looks at him the way a person looks at a cliff they've already jumped from. We already did, she says. Every time they push through the hatch, and the storm drags its wet hand over them, full of eyes and knives and all the choices they've already made. Above, the house lights try to hold steady and fail. The ship's spine complains. Somewhere, the Harlequin curses a schedule. Somewhere else, a chairman's mask sticks to his sweat. They move. The last alliance isn't the devil's. It's theirs, renewed in rain, to burn what needs burning, to starve what needs starving, to deny anyone the pleasure of owning them. The ship's lights flicker a third time, longer, darker, and the crowd's curiosity folds into fear. Time to ruin the auction, she says. Time to make them choke, he answers. Together, they step into the bright that's about to go out. The auction hall sways with the storm. Chandeliers overhead flicker, their crystals trembling with every roll of thunder. Rows of velvet chairs creak under the weight of masked donors who've paid to watch lives change hands like antiques. The stage is set, a pedestal under a single white spotlight, a velvet cloth hiding what they think will be revealed. 2 legends in chains, paraded like spoils, but the lights are sick. They pulse unevenly, shadows deepening and stretching until the whole room feels like a fever dream. The MC, his bird mask slick with sweat, clears his throat into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, your long-awaited spectacle. He flourishes toward the wings. Silence rolls across the hall, thick and expectant. Nothing happens. Murmurs stir, masks tilting toward one another. The MC tries again, his voice brittle. Tonight, you will witness. The chandelier above him flares, sputters, then dies, leaving him bathed in a spotlight too bright, too cruel. His shadow stretches across the stage, long and broken. And from that shadow, they step out, not in chains, not humbled, armed with nothing but stormlight in their eyes and a fury sharpened into purpose. The crowd gasps, a wave of voices caught between awe and terror. She moves first, her mask of matte black slicing her features into something inhuman, her pistol steady as her breath. He follows, the domino mask turning his gaze into a predator's. Together, they are not victims. They are revelation. Lot 1, she says, her voice ringing out clear, mocking, alive and unbroken. Lot 2, he adds, knife glinting under the lights. Not for sale? Panic scrambles through the audience. Some rise, stumbling for exits. Others stay, transfixed, their hunger for spectacle answered in a way they never paid for. Security surges toward the stage, but the storm inside the ship is already theirs. The first wave charges from the wings, white smile men, rifles lifted. She fires into the floodlights instead, glass exploding, sparks raining down. Darkness rolls over the hall in waves, leaving only strobes of gunfire and thunder. He dives into the chaos, blade flashing, cutting through the first soldier like the storm cuts through silence. The crowd screams, a sound that blends terror with exhilaration. Masks fall to the floor, trampled, forgotten. Wealthy hands scrabble for hidden exits, but the fallen containers outside have blocked them. They are trapped in their own theater, forced to watch as the performance turns on them. On stage, she reloads, calm even as bullets shriek past her. He grabs the microphone, voice raw, loud, undeniable. This auction is cancelled. The lots are free. He hurls the stand into a charging soldier, cracking ribs. She covers him, her shots precise, each one a sentence in the language of survival. From the balcony, a figure leans forward, the harlequin mask, gloved hands gripping the rail. Beautiful, the broker calls down, voice electrified. You give them exactly what they came for. Chaos, blood. You make the myth worth the price. She lifts her gun, aims at the balcony, but the harlequin is already gone, vanishing into smoke and laughter. The storm outside howls, battering the ship. Lightning strikes the mast, sending a tremor through the decks. The chandeliers swing wildly, one snapping loose, crashing into the seats below. Screams rise again. Somewhere, an alarm begins to wail, mechanical and furious. They're driving us to the deck, he mutters, pulling her toward the wings. They want the crowd out and us pinned. Then we pin them, she snaps, eyes blazing. They burst through the backstage doors, into corridors, vibrating with the ship's panic. The floor tilts as the storm wrestles with the hull. Red lights flash along the walls, sirens echoing. They move fast, silent, ghosts through chaos. But as they round a corner, they stop. Rook stands there, or what's left of him, shirt ripped, one arm bound in a sling, face hollow but alive. His eyes find theirs, wide, with something between guilt and resolve. I bought you 5 minutes, he says, voice trembling. That's all I had left. Behind him, a squad of masked men charges, weapons raised. Rook doesn't move aside. He stands there, small and shaking, but unyielding. Go, he roars. They don't waste the gift. She grabs his wrist, squeezes once, a goodbye, an absolution, and then they vanish down another corridor as gunfire erupts. The last they hear of Rook is his laughter, wild and broken, before it's cut short. They reach the storm deck. Rain lashes sideways, wind tearing at their clothes. The ship groans, massive and wounded, lights flickering in protest. Across the deck, more white smile men advance, silhouettes against lightning. At the bow, the Harlequin waits, mask gleaming in the storm. "This is where legends end," the broker calls, voice carried by the wind. "No," she answers, raising her gun. "This is where we burn brighter." The storm swallows the world, and the final battle begins. Wind tears the words out of their mouths and hurls them into the sea. Rain stitches the deck into a slick of silver. The Harlequin waits at the bow, a dark figure in a diamonded mask, flanked by white smile men whose rifles point like accusations. Behind, the auction hall spits out the last of its guests into the storm, gowns and tuxedos turned into flags of panic. Sirens wail, the ship shudders, starved of fuel and drunk on its own failing lights. They move without speaking. He angles left, a cut through shadow. She cuts right, a line of intent. The first of the white smiles advances, gun tilting. She answers with a shot that slaps the railing and showers sparks, forcing him to flinch, to blink, long enough for her to close the distance. Elbow, wrist, gun down. He takes the second, stepping inside the barrel's logic, turning momentum into a fold, a breath, a sleep. The storm claps its hands in approval. "Look at you," the Harlequin calls, voice modulated but amused. "You ruin everything so beautifully." "And you sell ruin for a living," she says, breath steady, though rain runs into her mouth. "There's a difference." The Harlequin lifts a hand. More silhouettes peel out of the darkness. Men who've never missed a payment and don't plan to. Tonight has been charming, but schedules are scripture. "The lots will be delivered," he laughs, low, knife glimmering. "Your scripture's short-circuiting." He tilts his head at the deck lights as they dim, brighten, die, come back stuttering like a failing heart. "You hear it? That's your God coughing." A ripple of unease travels through the white smiles. Somewhere deep, a pump chokes, then yields. The ship lists a degree to port and keeps listing. An animal discovering pain where it expected praise. Above, lightning spiderwebs the sky. On cue, a transformer gives up with a sound like a giant swallowing glass. Darkness slams down, swallowing faces, erasing distances. For a heartbeat, there is only rain, wind, breath. Then, emergency lamps flutter alive in thin red rods along the deck, painting everyone in the color of danger. She takes the interval and runs, feet sure on the slick metal. The Harlequin's head tracks her, the mask's grin frozen in delight. "You can't outrun a market," the broker says, turning to face her squarely. "It doesn't chase, it waits. And when you're tired, you come to it, then let it wait." Her gun comes up. The Harlequin lifts his hands, palms out, a pantomime of surrender that reads as theater. She fires at the speaker, strapped to his lapel instead. It explodes in a pop of sparks, the modulated voice dying mid-breath. The next sentence arrives raw, human close. "You think taking my voice takes my teeth?" "No," she says, stepping closer, rain slicking her hair to her jaw. But it lets me hear you when you lie. Behind, he boils through another pair of white smiles, movements clean, efficient, without show. A rifle butt finds his ribs. He breathes through it. A blade kisses his forearm. He takes the cut to keep the hand that matters. He hears her across the storm, even without seeing her. Footsteps. The cadence of a breath he could find in a blackout. It steadies him like a wall that moves when he moves. More security pours onto the deck from a hatch near the stern. These don't wear smiles. They wear real faces, grim and tired, men who work for money and expect nothing else. Above them, the glass of the bridge glows thinly. Through the rain, he sees silhouettes pushing buttons that do not answer, phones that do not call. They're losing the ship. It has decided to be heavy and stubborn and alive in all the wrong ways. He grabs the dead man's phone, thumbs a final command Rook texted before he disappeared into gunfire. Bypass growth. Force fail. The screen blinks assent. Somewhere below, a breaker that wanted to be brave chooses to be honest and trips. Half the red rods die. Thunder presses its mouth to the deck and speaks a single word. Now, enough theatrics, the Harlequin says, and flicks 2 fingers. 2 men lunge at her in tandem. She does not step back. She steps through. One's wrist folds wrong, with a crack swallowed by wind. The other's knee meets the steel with a sound that means it will not stand again tonight. The Harlequin claps gloved hands, mockery fragile without the radio. Brava, tell me the name, she says, breathing hard, but even. The foundation, the choir boys. Give me a throat to choke that isn't a mask. You'll never reach them, the broker says, and in the human voice lives something like sadness, or something like truth. They've never set foot on a dock that wasn't a metaphor. Then I'll drown their metaphor, she answers. He reaches her just as 3 more guards come in hard from the starboard gangway. He places his back to hers, because there is no geometry in which that is a bad idea. The old rhythm returns, not perfect. Nothing is, not after Rook, not after the note, but true enough to build a moment on. Left, right, strike cover, breath, breath, alive, alive. The ship lurches again, deeper. A wave slams the bow, the deck tilts. Men who thought balance was muscle discover it's a promise the sea never made. Somewhere, the anchor chain screams. Somewhere else, a lifeboat snaps its tether and slams into the hull, scraping paint like a fingernail on a door. Time, he says, and she hears the other word inside it. Together. She nods once. They move forward, closing the last steps to the Harlequin. Up close, the mask is chipped at the mouth, where her blood-smeared smile clung earlier. That amuses her more than it should. The broker tilts their head, studying them as if they are art that might be forgery and might be masterpiece. You can't kill what you can't find, the human voice says quietly. And you can't find what doesn't want to be real. You sound tired, he says. I'm realistic. A glance past them, toward the dark, where the chairs were. They'll replace you with a story if they can't have your bodies. A myth is easier to store. Then let them store a mystery, she says, and the word cuts cooler than her blade. What happens next is not clean, and not inevitable, and not something they'll tell as a legend. because the best parts of a legend are lies. A guard makes a choice and lunges in the wrong beat. He uses the mistake and turns it into an opening. The Harlequin reaches for a weapon that isn't there because vanity hated bulges under a tailored coat. The rain shifts direction as if the storm decides it likes them more than the ship. They step in as one. Not for a kill. No, not that. But for a disarming, a breaking of plane and posture. The Harlequin's mask skews. The figure stumbles against the rail, gloves scrabbling for purchase on slick steel. She catches the broker by the lapel. For a second, they are close enough to kiss, which makes both of them laugh. One with actual amusement, one with disgust. She tears the mask off. The face beneath is infuriatingly ordinary. A jaw that never had to clench. Eyes the color of expensive glass. A beauty mark that would photograph well. The ordinariness is the point. You wouldn't remember this person if you passed them twice in a hallway. "What's your name?" she asks one last time. He expects a lie. She knows he expects a lie. The broker offers none. "Not the one you need," the human voice says, and rain runs into that beautiful, forgettable mouth. She releases the lapel. Not mercy. Math. "Tell them," she says, and tips her chin towards the ruined hall, toward the donors pressed behind glass, faces pale. "Tell them we chose our faces. Tell them you lost yours." White smiles rally. Desperate now? A flashbang arcs toward the deck. He snatches it on instinct and throws it back without thinking about fingerprints or fate. Thunder swallows its scream. In that pocket of noise and light, they run, not away but across, diagonal to the lifeboat, where the severed line still clings like a prayer. He hacks the remaining tether with a knife quick as a blink. The boat drops, slaps water, bounces. He catches the rail with one hand and her with the other, and gravity does the math. They fall with it. An untidy duet, hit the rubber and roll, breath punched out, rain in their eyes, laughter in neither throat. Above, shouts pile up in the dark. Bullets stitch the water like angry hail, wide and late. He kicks the release, the painter line snaking away. The boat spins, nose towards the open harbor, where the storm waits like a door only fools try. She crawls to him and drags the emergency cover up. A slick canvas that turns the boat into a lump of darkness in a sea of it. Inside, the world narrows to breath and heartbeat and the sound of water wanting them. He gropes along the bench until his hand finds hers. She laces their fingers like a binding. Outside, the ship's horns bellow, then falter as the power they starved refuses to forgive. "You with me?" he asks, voice small in the canvas cave. "Every time," she says, and means it so hard it hurts. They listen. Above, orders fail to carry. The auction dissolves into weather. Somewhere, perhaps, a man with an unremarkable face stands at a rail and touches his bare skin, as if it has betrayed him. Somewhere else, a mechanic under a bridge smokes with hands that won't stop shaking and decides, for tonight, not to die. Rain softens. The storm breathes out. The city, patient, cruel, alive, turns just enough that the harbor gives them a shadow to hide in. He squeezes her hand. She squeezes back. Their faces are bare, and no one sees them but each other. When the last of the ship's lights finally gutter and go, the dark arrives not as terror, but as fidelity. A choice kept, a promise cashed. Not an ending, not exactly. A pause between heartbeats, deep as water. Lights out, she whispers. Together, he answers. The sea takes them into itself, and the night forgets their names on purpose. 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 Names on purpose.